two, 1, 2. Hello there and welcome along to the Manzilla Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Now, if you've ever done shift work before, you'll know how grueling it is on your body. I do it quite regularly and I struggle. Getting up crazy o'clock, going to bed at mad hours, I tell you what, it really takes its toll on the body clock in so many ways. From your tiredness, from your fatigue, from everything to your mental health. You know, my moods are up and down like anything, and I'm sure loads of you out there who do shift work know exactly where I'm coming from. So today, on today's show, I have got an incredible guest, Grace Cowan, aka the Shift Workers Coach on social media, and she is a specialist coach and does all her work around like coaching and you know, nutrition and lifestyle-based advice and programs for shift workers, particularly you know, people who work crazy hours and have mad body clock patterns. So this is a great show if you want to know how to get the most out of your body when you're doing mad hours and you feel like all you want to do is lie in bed or eat junk, that sort of thing. You know, it's a really motivational podcast. There are some great nuggets of wisdom in this one. Grace, I think you'll find, is a very easy to listen to person. She's got great takeaway advice, takeaway advice. Just came up with that on the spot. I hope you like this one because I think it will go down quite well for anyone who works tough hours or knows someone that works tough hours. And if you do know someone that works tough hours and you think this could help them, then please do share it. You can find this podcast on all the usual platforms, on your regular providers like Apple, Spotify, etc. And also follow us on social media at Man-Zilla Online. The podcast is called the Man-Zilla Men's Podcast. I'm sure you know that already. I don't know why I'm telling you this. But yeah, so do hit the subscribe button, do hit the follow button, do hit the like button on social media and comment as well if you can on all the platforms and on the podcast platforms as well. And it would be great to have your feedback on the show because the feedback is what helps build the programs in the future and it helps me get better as a podcaster as well. This is a relatively newish discipline for me alongside the day job of presenting. So any like feedback or help I can get on things to do with the shows, that'd be great. So yes, please do listen along and please do enjoy this show. It's myself talking to Grace Cowan, the Shift Workers Coach.
I've done shift work for probably about 15 years prior to coaching. Started off after university, worked in children's homes, then I went into the NHS working in mental health and then became a police officer. So I've always kind of done shift work in some kind of realm. And I think I actually preferred it to 9 to 5, to be fair. Yeah. I did do 9 to 5 for a couple of weeks in a recruitment company and I was like, this is not for me. Yeah. But yeah, so I kind of got into fitness at a later age. I was always like the overweight, shy kid. Right. My sister was a gymnast. I was the one that was just not really interested in fitness, but for no other reason than I couldn't really do it. Yeah. So it was just never really my thing, and as the time went by I got more and more unhealthy, more and more overweight, and then I got into fitness before the shift work, and then as I started the shift work, that's when the cracks start to show a little bit more. Possibly when I joined the police, that was where it really hit home. Right. I think because nothing really prepares you for what you're going to deal with, yeah, and the impact that that's going to start to have not only on your physical health but on your mental health as well. Yeah, definitely. Like no amount of PowerPoints and training school prepares you for some of the scenes and some of the horrendous things that you actually see. And I think you just kind of get trapped in this world of shift work. Yes. And everything becomes about work. Yeah. And then I obviously started to look after myself a little bit more. I actually started to live my life a little bit more, started to feel healthier, started to be able to do the things outside of shift work that I couldn't do before because I was just burnt out constantly. Right. Yeah. Rest days I was just asleep, I was drinking, I was eating rubbish, and it just became this like spiral effect, I suppose.
That's easily done as well, isn't it?
Oh,
like,
so easily done.
The hunger pangs and like the kind of like desire to reach for the vices, if you like, the sweets, the sugar, the alcohol, whatever it is. Like, it's more prominent. You feel like you deserve it more, right? That's how I sort of see it. I sometimes think, oh, I've done crazy amounts this week, I deserve that.
Absolutely, and that's what so many of like people speak to me on Instagram all the time, and it's like I get to the end of the week and I think, oh, I've had a really rubbish week, and I've been to two really demanding jobs tonight, so I'm going to treat myself on the way back with a Mackey's. Yes. And you end up fitting into the mould, And that's what a lot of the time a lot of police officers say to me. It's like, I don't want to fit into the mould. And right now that's what I'm doing, because if you look at the reputation of a lot of police officers right now, it's what the public's perception is they're overweight, they eat donuts, they eat takeaways, you know, there's people taking pictures of them queuing up in takeaways, and they're kind of ridiculed for it. And a lot of new officers now are like, I don't want to fit into that mould.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's why the demand for me on social media and people coming to me is that because they've never seen a coach that actually specialises in shift work, because a lot of the time they'll go to coaches, they'll go to personal trainers, and they might just be like bodybuilder style coaches, and they don't really understand that they don't always get a chance to eat. They might not be able to get the steps in, they might miss the gym session, and for them to tell another coach that, it's like, well, why? Why can't you do this? But because I've been in their shoes, I can kind of help them navigate around it, and understand that these things do happen, but we can do things a different way.
So the way you do that then, how like, say someone approaches you, do they come to you with the specific desire to try and get fitter, get better, get rid of the burnout? Knowing that you do this sort of like stuff for your coaching, like, you know, kind of shift-based stuff that they can kind of orientate their life around. Is that something they kind of like actively sort of say, how can you help with my hours? Yeah,
so I'd say a high percentage of people that reach out to me just want to feel better.
Right.
It's not a case of I want abs, I want to run a marathon. I mean, you do get the odd one that comes with a big goal, but I'd say a lot of shift workers just want to feel better.
Right.
And that's why they come to me, because they've reached a point where enough's enough. When you're trapped in that land of shift work and the brutality of shift work, you're just putting one foot in front of the other on a daily basis. And that's where obviously I come in and teach them about these habits that they probably know about but they forget about, and they've replaced them with bad habits. And that's what I say to people. This isn't about me coming in and flipping your world upside down. This is just going, right, okay, these habits that you've got right now are just not serving you. So let's flip it and start adding the 1%, and these are going to compound over time. And initially, they'll come to me in a few weeks' time, and it's like, I don't feel like this is hard. This isn't hard. This is actually really easy. And it's because they've just forgotten about how to, do the world-class basics with the hydration, the nutrition, sorting the sleep out. And, sleep alone is going to massively change your life. If you can manage to get restorative sleep, that is going to change your life. And so often it's just an afterthought for a lot of shift workers. I mean, you're probably the same. If you've got things on the next day, you'll jeopardize sleep.
Absolutely.
To get up and go.
First thing that gets sacrificed all the time.
And it's the last thing that should get sacrificed. It really is.
Is that the one thing that you sort of start with first, then, the sleep side of things?
Absolutely.
Really?
So we have like a Kickstarter that we ask our clients to do, and that will tell me about the movement, it will tell me about the nutrition, it will tell me about their sleep habits, and that's where I then come in and start to introduce new habits. So even with the sleep routine, it's things like having a wind down routine, which is not what a lot of people have. Like making sure that if you are staying up watching the TV, if you're on your phone, you're putting blue light blocking glasses on, you're setting yourself up for sleep. So even using pillow sprays, like this sounds like really, really simple stuff, but these things go such a long way when it comes to sleep.
It's really interesting, because I sort of come from the point of view, I mean, this is obviously my like stubborn thinking, that I think, do I really need blue light blocker glasses? Probably not. I won't even think about it, I won't even bother about it, although a lot of other people have said the same in terms of what it does for you. And then also the same with the spray, I'm thinking like, oh great, lavender spray, I'm sure it'll be great, but I'll be alright without it. And then you think like, hang on a minute, maybe if you did it properly every night, you get better sleep, better quality sleep, I'm sure.
Absolutely, because the body likes repetition. So your body will then get used to the smells, it'll get used to you putting the blue light blocking glasses on, and naturally you will start to increase your sleepiness hormone, which is melatonin, and your body will start to relax And because you're not doing all these things, your body's staying in that synthetic state. So it's staying in the fight or flight state when it should be starting to go into the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest and actually relax. And honestly, the changes in that alone can be absolutely monumental. It really can. Just by putting the blue light blockers on, getting the pillow sprays. And what I say to my clients is stick to the same routine, even if it's days, even if it's nights, because again, the body likes repetition. So it'll get used to the smell. It'll get used to the fact that you're putting an eye mask on, and the blue light blockers. Like my clients will drive home from nights with the blue light blockers on. And you know, and they do might look a bit daft, but I'd rather look a bit daft and get a good sleep.
And do you put that on indoors as well, like the blue light blockers?
Yeah. So a couple of hours before bed. That's when I always put mine on. Mine will be going on soon as I get home. I'm surprised I'm not sat here with them on.
We're recording this evening,
but yeah, it's just, and making sure that you're cutting down on your caffeine as well, which is another thing. I was a caffeine monster. I used to drink 8 caffeinated drinks per shift. It was ridiculous. It got to a point where it probably wasn't doing anything, but it was just that I need a coffee. So making sure that you're not having caffeine 8 hours before bed, and just making sure that you are getting that solid sleep really, really, really does make a difference.
If someone comes to you like as a blank slate and they're all over the shop with their hours, they're struggling, they're burnt out, what's the first thing you kind of look at and work on? What's the sort of thing you go for first?
So obviously the sleep, and then after, because the thing is with sleep, it's a domino effect. So if you sleep well, your hunger hormones regulate properly. When you don't sleep well, your hunger hormones are haywire. They don't work.
Completely.
So you never feel full, and you're just constantly craving sugar and carbs. So it's like, because it's your body's desired source of energy, so that's what it's going to do. And then I will obviously look at hydration, which another thing is really, really underestimated, but water itself is something that is going to give you energy. And nutrition. So I want to see your nutrition habits. What are you eating on a daily basis? What times are you eating? What, everything about it to kind of start to lay down the foundations. And again, this can start with just the simple basics of making sure you're eating protein in every meal. Because a lot of the time I'll speak to new clients and what's breakfast? So it'll be a croissant and a coffee. What's for lunch? It'll be a pasty and a fizzy pop. What's for dinner? If they're still at work, it's a takeaway. There's probably been about 30 grams of protein in that. So again, like little basics such as eating protein in every meal. Oh my God, I feel so much more full. I've got so much more energy. And these are the things that they are really basic, but people just forget when they are just in the midst of shift work and feeling stressed. So again, it's that what we were talking about before, when you zoom out and go, right, okay, let's just start to implement these little 1%. And it's a work in progress, because then when they start eating protein in every meal, let's up it. Let's have more protein. Let's make sure we're doing this. If you've hit 1 litre of water a day, next week let's get 2. The week after, let's get 3. So it's not just a case of me coming in and going, right, I want you to drink 5 litres of water. I want you to prep every single thing that goes into your mouth. And I want you to get 8 hours of solid sleep. It's got to be a case of laying down the foundations and then building the scaffolding from there. And that's what one of the core principles of the program is the 1%. The 1%, I love the 1% principle. Because it keeps you moving forwards.
And that's just 1% incrementally. Changes,
on everything, to do with the water, nutrition, the steps, the training programs, everything. So you start at the bottom, and all you've got to think about is becoming 1% better in each aspect every single day. And over the course of the weeks and the months, that's where they get to the end, and we'll kind of reassess how they've done. And I ask them things like the confidence, energy and the fitness levels. They're 3 metrics that I like to use at the start. I ask them to score it. I'll reassess 12 weeks later and they've all doubled and they're like, oh my God, but I don't tell them what their answers were the first time. I'll just ask them again.
Really? Okay.
And I'll say, right, okay, well, this is what you actually said 12 weeks ago. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Oh, wow. That's
amazing.
And the type of person you work with, is there a type, or what kind of, how does it range for you? What are your sort of like demographics, if you like?
Mainly police officers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think because
you're an
ex-cop, and a lot of my social media content is police based, because that's the kind of shift work that I came from.
It's the hardest type of shift work.
But I have got some paramedics as well. And that's mainly it. In terms of, but again, like you said, the shift work is shift work at the end of the day. It's what so many people do, but that's the people that I'm attract to my content. I think.
And you do a lot on social, which I've seen, which is how I initially came across you. And your stuff on your content on social is again geared around that kind of type of content and that sort of that messaging. Is there a strategy you have with that, or is it mainly how do you approach selling shift work as a kind of way to get people to come to you to see you for coaching?
I think a lot of it comes from the connection side of things. So I could put a connection post out about a struggle that I had as a police officer, and the interaction that I get from that alone, I think one post I got 1,300 followers from one post. So a lot of my top performing posts are my connection style posts where people can relate to them. So I get a lot of inbound inquiries. And just have a conversation with people, and they want to know how I can help them. So then I'll jump on a call with people, I'll get to know them a little bit better and see whether they're actually right for coaching. Because not everybody's coachable.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, not everybody's ready. A lot of people like the idea. And they think, oh my God, I want to look like that, I want to do that. But then when it gets down to it, they don't actually want to do the work.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that will want a quick fix and they'll want a magic wand, which is not how you get results, I'm afraid. And as you know yourself, it's got to be patience, consistency, and that's what kind of gets you the results.
I see. What do you think are the biggest blocks or barriers for people who struggle with the implementation of the plans? Do you think that there's something what do you think it is that stops them going forward and like actually doing the sort of good things?
I think there's a couple of things. Potentially mental health can be a big barrier. And I think self-doubt. And people often think, oh, I can't do this, I'm going to fail at it, and they kind of not set themselves up to fail, but they kind of tell themselves a story that they're not good enough to do it. And as a result of that, I mean, the mind will do whatever you tell it to do. And it will just be like, right, okay, well, we can't do it, so we're just not going to do it. And I think that's a big one. But the way that I kind of go around that with clients that I find are struggling that way is explaining that to them. And explaining the fact that your brain's main job is to keep you safe. And if you keep telling your brain that you can't do something, guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. So you need to kind of push through that. And I learnt that the hard way. Like I was saying before, I always told myself I couldn't do sports, I can't do this, can't run. And now I do Ironmans. And I'm a coach. And it's just about, pushing yourself through that I can, and actually going, if I apply myself, I actually can. But like I said, when people are struggling, it is hard to kind of get them to see it that way. But I'd say another thing is maybe people not really having a strong enough reason to change. Like they're actually not that unhappy with how they feel. And they're quite comfortable. So like I said, they'll think that they want it, but they're just not quite ready for it.
I know what you mean. It's interesting. If someone comes to you with like one type of shift pattern, say, and then another person comes to you with the opposite. Are there differences basically between body clocks that you work with? And is that something that you kind of tailor with?
Yeah.
So someone's an early bird and they have to be up at 3, 4 a.m. or whatever. Is there something you do for that person? And then if someone works nights, do you do something for them too? Because I imagine that they're both extremes.
Yeah.
And probably body clock wise would demand different things maybe.
Yeah, so the way that I do it is kind of across the board. Like obviously there's different chronotypes, like you've got the early birds and you've got the night owls.
Yeah.
And what I explain to all my new clients is it's about them honing their own craft. So when it comes to training, when it comes to doing the sessions and things like that, wherever they feel they're going to perform the best, stick with that. Right. I'm not going to say to you, if you're absolutely knackered in the morning, get up and get your training session done like Sergeant Major. It's like you've got to decide what is best for you. If you know that on an early shift you're going to be knackered at the end of it, don't plan to do a gym session around that, because it's not going to be right for you. You're not going to get the best out of that session. So it's about guiding them and educating them around. It's not got to be a rigid approach, allowing it to be flexible and adaptable. And when it comes to night shifts and going into the night shift and coming out of the night shift, that's where I'll teach them how to manipulate the sleep. Right. Because that's another thing that I did, and I was a sucker for staying in bed all day after a night shift and then not being able to sleep and walking around like a zombie for the whole of my rest days. And I think so educating them around how to get their sleep-wake cycle back on track if they have had, because some of them work earlies and then they do lates, but the lates can be like mid shifts, so finishing at like 4 a.m, then they'll finish at 7 a.m, and it's all over the place. But as long as on that last night shift they sleep for 4 hours and 4 hours only, they're getting themselves back into that rhythm again, because they're going to be absolutely knackered by the time they come to bed again. Exactly. And then they'll get back into a rhythm again. And on the first night shift, when you're going into a night shift, I used to think, I need to stay in bed till lunchtime. But that's the wrong way to do it. You need to get yourself up, get yourself out, and get yourself under some daylight, because you're going to be deprived whilst you're working nights. True. And again, that's another thing that helps with the biological clock. And it's why a lot of people struggle with digestion issues when they're working like through the night and stuff, is because they're not been manipulating the sleep, but then the body's not in a position to be digesting food at that time. It just isn't. It's supposed to be in a restful state, and we're shoveling food down our necks, and it's the body's just going, what is this? I can't do anything with this. And that's where you get the cramps and you get the bloatedness and things like that. So I actually advise my clients to have a window throughout the night that they don't actually eat. And if they are going to eat, keep it protein only, because again, the body is just not designed to be processing food overnight.
There we are, inspirational stuff from Grace Cowan, the shift workers coach. Very appreciative to have her time and some of her knowledge really on coping with crazy body clock patterns, because I think the way that the economy is going, the way that the world is going at the moment, shift work is becoming more and more prevalent, isn't it? Jobs are becoming more dynamic. Things are changing, aren't they? Shift work is definitely something I think that's on the rise. It's always around. The nature of the 24-hour global world that we live in these days demands shift work, because business doesn't stop, does it? Life doesn't stop. Everything has to keep moving. People have to work in different body clock patterns, and I think you'll find that if you can manage that as best you can, and if you can get the best out of your body and you can get the best out of your emotional and mental health by doing that, then maybe some of those tips can really help you out in the future. So I really hope that you enjoyed this show. Do remember to like, subscribe, etc. on all the podcast platforms, and follow us on the usual ones as well, like Instagram and now TikTok obviously as well. TikTok seems to be really booming, doesn't it? So, and YouTube. So yes, please do that. And I look forward to bringing you the next show. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the Man-Zilla Podcast, and have a great day.